Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Denice Gary Show. It is just, again, an honor and a privilege to have Philip Haney, an intelligence officer from the Department of Homeland Security, one of the founding members that walked in right after 9/11 and began doing the tremendous work of finding out through intelligence what are the terrorist networks in the United States and how they're related and connected to groups around the globe and in the Middle East. Philip Haney, thank you so much for coming on the Denice Gary Show today.
You're very welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Philip, you got my rough notes for today. I want to begin by pointing out what's all over the news this Monday, and that's half of the Saudi oil output, or more than 5% of the global supply, was destroyed by what the United States government and what's being reported based on CIA and the Israeli Mossad. The CIA and the Israeli Mossad working together has pointed out that the Iranian regime, and please clarify this information if I don't have it correct, but based on my understanding, the Iranian regime has been backing the Houthi terrorist group inside Yemen, and that an Iranian proxy, i.e. the Houthi group, was what attacked and took out half of the Saudi oil output. Is that correct, sir?
If I understand you correctly, they said that at first.
Okay.
But they've proven now with satellite photographs and the physics of the way these drones or cruise missiles hit and how precise they were. They said it would have. They said the Houthis would have to be graduates of MIT to be as accurate as they were. There's been at least 17 now strike points, and they use a combination of drones and what were called cruise missiles. So the story's changing quickly.
Okay.
It looks more and more like Iran.
All right. I did hear something about the attacks came not from the south, but from the east. And that suggested, and I heard something about that, and then I had to rush off to my morning class. So it sounds like you're confirming what I was hearing as I ran out the door this morning, was that, again, the intel that was coming in was pointing to what you just said, coming from the east and not from the Houthis in the south and Yemen, but from Iran. And now you're suggesting that the satellite images has also indicated there were cruise missiles, so it was more than drone attacks.
Well, yes, the satellite images not only from high, but also the fact that not every one of the drones or the missiles hit the target. Some of them fell short or missed. So they have, evidence, crime scene evidence, if you might say,
Excellent.
of the weapons that were used. And for them to come from Yemen, they would have flown past, going north, and made a U-turn and come back. But these kind of weapons don't fly like that, so they had to come
from the
basically
east.
in a straight line, and they were aimed within feet, meaning precise. That means they had GPS guidance systems on them.
Okay.
So they were targeted, which sets off a whole bunch of other questions. How did they know so precisely where to aim those?
Well, I'm sure.
Yeah. Missiles.
Well, Iran, I'm sure, has its own intelligence agents on the ground in Saudi Arabia. So it doesn't that doesn't seem odd, does it? I mean, obviously, I'm sure Iran has satellites and agents on the ground that would know precisely where to target. Is that correct, Philip? Philip?
Yeah, I lost you.
Okay. Is that correct, that there would be satellites by the Iranians? I mean, Iranian agents would know precisely where to hit. Is that correct?
Well, Iranian agents would know if they had eyes on the ground.
Absolutely.
Which seems to be the case everywhere in the Middle East.
Right.
There's all kinds of eyes on the ground everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And, the common language and the inability to tell people apart, so to speak. But yes, they've confirmed from satellites. They're pretty certain, and President Trump said it right away that it looked like they were coming from Iran. And every day it comes out a little bit more detail. They said they're going to declassify some more of the information pretty soon, next few hours or day, to let people see that it really did come from
I heard that.
Iran.
Yeah, I heard that. In fact, apparently Pompeo, Secretary of State Mike Pompeo tweeted out on Saturday, quote, amid all the calls for de-escalation, Iran has now launched an unprecedented attack on the world's energy supply. And then the Saudi de facto Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman told Trump by telephone, this was reported out on Saturday, that Riyadh, the capital of Saudi Arabia, that the government of Saudi Arabia was willing and able to deal with a terrorist aggression. I thought it was incredible that Saudi Arabia's missile defense system wasn't effective in preventing this attack. Your thoughts on that, Philip?
Two thoughts. I'll start with the last part. You think of the Iron Dome in Israel,
right,
which was a joint cooperative project between American technology and Israeli technology that's actually capable of essentially shooting a bullet out of the sky.
Exactly, right.
I wonder why the Saudis are not using that technology. That's one point we could talk out in more detail. But to me, the most important point of this whole event is something that really hasn't been emphasized very much at all, is that the United States now has command of virtually the entire reserves of oil in the world. Not Saudi, not some other Middle Eastern country, United States.
Yes.
And I think it's remarkable that President Trump has had the foresight to make us energy independent, and that now, in an incredible role reversal, we're now the ones standing. And are we being selfish with it? No. President Trump says we are going to make it available as it's needed. And so not only that, we can ramp up our own oil production in just a moment's notice. We're now the number one oil producer in the world. You could say energy producer in the world. To me, if you want to find hope in a situation like this and something to be thankful for, that would be it. Because after all the years being told that you're never going to see those kind of times of production again, we're now the number one oil producer in the world.
Well, a former Democrat who was president, Obama, said we'd never be the number one oil exporter in the world again. So, the Democrats have always said that. President Trump turned that on its head. Ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to oil in America's interest, last year the U.S., according to the S&P Global Platts report that came out on January 9, 2019, we bought only 3.8 billion barrels of Saudi oil. That's only 11%. So we only bothered to buy 11% of Saudi Arabian oil. We don't need Saudi Arabia's oil, do we, Filippini?
No, and it's getting more so that way every day, and this last incident in Saudi proved it. They've lost half their capacity. I hope they can get it up tomorrow or the next day, but it might be quite some time. If we were dependent on Saudi oil right now, what do you think the market would look like?
Well, right. Yes, exactly. The price of oil would shoot through the sky. It's my understanding that President Trump made sure that as of today, we have 644 billion barrels of oil today that he, and as you properly stated, he authorized release of that if we needed it. But again, we only purchase from Saudi Arabia 11% of what the United States needs, so it doesn't sound like we need it. Let's move on. The Iranians are saying, and this was reported out by, I believe I read this off Al Jazeera, I might be wrong, but I read yesterday that a senior Revolutionary Guard commander warned the United States that it was ready for quote-unquote full full-fledged war. And I'm quoting the senior Revolutionary Guard commander. I'm quoting him, and he went on to state, quote, "Everybody should know that all American bases and their aircraft carriers in a distance of up to 2,000 kilometers around Iran are within the range of our missiles." Now, that came from the Tasnim news agency. That's a government-run news agency. I heard the president on the radio driving back from class to the studio to do this interview. I heard the president say he's not at all worried about going to war against Iran, that he's not one to go to war over this. It sounds like the president is really taking a very thoughtful, wise approach to all this. He says he's still waiting to get more information, and he's not in a hurry. I thought that was profound. It made my blood pressure go down. I thought, lovely. The president is waiting for more information. I like that. He says he's not in a hurry. I like that. He wants to look at all the facts. I like that. I'm feeling good about that. How about you, Philip?
I feel the same way. We had a president coin the phrase a couple of generations ago: "Walk softly, but carry a big stick."
Theodore Roosevelt. He was a Republican.
Yep.
Yes.
And President Trump says lock and load.
Lock and
It doesn't
load.
mean pull the trigger. It just means we're ready.
We're ready. We've got enough ammunition.
What else should we be except be ready? When we have these, isn't that what the military is actually for?
That's right.
Not to just float around out there and say, wave a finger at them and no, lock and load. We're ready to go.
That's
if
right.
That's what's going to take to deal with this, then we're ready. It's not up to us. Up to you. We're not pushing for it, but we'll do it if we have to.
Love
That's
it, Philip.
the way he is.
Love it, Philip. Thank you for reminding me that, because I did hear him say that. Let's move on. My next question regarding this situation between Iran and Saudi Arabia. Do you think that this is just a Iranian Saudi Arabian conflict, or do you think this is a bigger sort of Sunni Shiite conflict? As a Middle East expert, how do you look at this?
No, it's not just a Iranian-Saudi Arabian conflict. There's conflicts between Shia and Sunni going on
all
virtually
over
every part of the world,
Thank
wherever
you.
there's a proportion of Shia and Sunni in the population, like Afghanistan.
That's
now.
right. That's right.
Same kind of thing. It's an existential battle. It's basically an argument over theological interpretation.
Right. It
Who
is.
is actually more accurate in terms of the will of Allah? Is it the Sunni or is it the Shia? Which, by the way, means sect. What we call sect, a sect of religion. That's what Shia means. It's a sect of Islam, and they've been at each other's throats since the Battle of Karbala.
Yeah.
I think around the year 860.
So not long after Islam's establishment, not long after its founding, in 632, they began to. There was a split, and it seems like the Sunnis have always looked down their noses at the Shia, as you properly stated, a sect of Islam. So I imagine this is going to continue on and on. Ladies and gentlemen, for those of you that might not remember, Iraq, which is a Sunni Muslim state, attacked the Iranians, and they battled it out for almost 10 years, from at least 1980 to 1988, and it was a horrific thing. I remember reading about. I had top secret clearances at the time, although I don't think this was classified information. I think it was declassified. I think it was being reported on in the New York Times that the Iranians literally sent out children into the minefields to find out where the mines were. And they would be killed or their leg would be blown off. But they literally used children to go check out those minefields. And I think it was horrifying to people here in the West that Iran would use children in that manner. They were probably, I imagine, orphan children or street children that were picked up by the government. But moving on, Philip, what do you think the next move should be on the part of the United States? The president says he's thinking about what his next step will be. He's not in a hurry. He's waiting to get more facts and information. As you pointed out, the CIA and the Mossad are probably, I imagine they're collaborating and sharing intel. What do you think the next move should be?
I think we have a good precedent if we just look at Israel. How does Israel respond when the Hezbollah shoots missiles over the border?
Very targeted surgical strike. A surgical strike.
Exactly. I think that's a surgical answer.
Yep.
It's going to be a surgical strike. Whatever it ends up being, it's going to be very careful down to the centimeter. Mm-hmm. And that's what they're waiting for, to gather the information. They're doing the trajectories and the computers and where do these missiles come from, all that kind of thing. Looking back over the last few days, now that they know something happened, what movement patterns there were over in Iran, evaluating the whole situation and go from there.
I think that's absolutely right. I think it'll be a surgical strike, and I think they'll figure out exactly where those drones were launched from. I thought it was interesting, real quick, before we close up on this subject. Al Jazeera came out and said it was a total failure on the part of the United States and the Saudi air defense systems that these drone attacks could paralyze Saudi Arabia. That's interesting. A gentleman by the name of, well, I don't know if he's a gentleman, a man by the name of General Nowar, again, this was on Al Jazeera, said that the success of the attack is an indication that the American presence in Saudi Arabia and the Patriot air defense system were unable to stop the drone attack. And he argued that it changes the future of warfare in the Middle East. Do you buy that, sir?
Well, I call that an Islamic Freudian slip or an Iranian Freudian slip. They don't realize that in boasting like that, they make us aware of the way they think, that these kind of lapses can be remedied, but that it's also a double-edged sword, and that very same boast can come right back on them, and it very likely will. So they always seem to overstate their case, and they also reveal a lot of the way they see the world when they issue these statements after any kind of an event like this. So what's the America going to do now? They're going to make double darn sure that they are ready for anything that happens from now on. Absolutely.
Let's move on to Hamza bin Laden. President, now we heard, and I know you did, if I did, you did. We heard, I believe it was back in July, Philip, that Hamza bin Laden, the son, that really the star, he became that sort of the shining star of Al-Qaeda. He took over where his father left off in terms of the leadership in Al-Qaeda along with Ayman al-Zawahiri. At least that's my understanding. Do I have that much correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's how some described him, yes.
Okay. And the president issued a statement on Saturday. I'd like to just share his statement with the audience. He said, Hamza bin Laden, the high-ranking Al-Qaeda member and son of Osama bin Laden, was killed in a United States counter-terrorism operation in the Afghanistan-Pakistan region. The president went on to say, and I quote, the loss of Hamza bin Laden not only deprives Al-Qaeda of important leadership skills and the symbolic connection to his father, but undermines important operational activities of the group. Hamza bin Laden was responsible for planning and dealing with various terrorist groups. My question to you, Philip, is in light of the fact that President Trump, 2 months later, really, he's not in a hurry, that is for sure, because this was reported out by various news sources in July. And now September 14th, the president comes out and officially confirms that Hamza bin Laden, what I've read is who was the favorite of Osama bin Laden, his father, had been killed in a counter-terrorism strike. I want to ask you, Philip, so do you believe that with his death, Ayman al-Zawahiri will literally take over, or since Ayman al-Zawahiri has not been as popular, do you know of, I mean, are you aware of the person who will probably take over Hamza bin Laden's place as the leader of Al-Qaeda?
Ayman al-Zawahiri might not be as photogenic and popular, but he's already in control of every branch of Al-Qaeda that there still is today.
Okay.
He's really the ruler.
Okay.
And Osama bin Laden's son may have been a rising star, but he didn't compare it by any means to the influence of Ayman al-Zawahiri.
Okay. Thank you. Let's one other thing. You know, in light of the fact that Al-Qaeda, we believe, was responsible for the 9/11 attacks, do you believe that right now they're preparing for another major, large-scale attack against the United States? And if so, where do you think that might occur?
There have been 35,300 attacks around the world since 9/11. Some of them have been quite large, some of them small. They're always preparing.
Okay.
We know a lot of the pieces are in place, bits and pieces and fragments, tidbits from the news stories about people coming over the southern border. But, you know, there are so many fuses in this situation. Any one of them can be lit at any given time.
Did I understand you? There's been 3,500 attacks around the globe since 9/11, and
no, 35,300.
35,300 attacks around the globe. 35,300 attacks around the globe since 9/11. Okay.
About one every 4 hours somewhere.
About one every 4 hours somewhere. Okay, I'm just writing that down. About one every 4 hours somewhere. Real quick, I'm getting off point, and I know I didn't include these in my notes to you. What about Canada? You know, Canada seems to be free-willing in terms of allowing people to come into Canada that have ties to terrorism. When you were working for the Department of Homeland Security, were you aware of terrorists coming through the Canadian-U.S. border?
Yeah, we had cooperation with the equivalent of Customs and Border Protection in Canada. We did cases every single day. In fact, the case I worked on, we've talked about before, the Tablighi Jamaat case. We had people from Tablighi Jamaat trying to cross the border all the time. And we talked to the Canadian guys virtually every single day.
Okay.
We've known about this for 10 years, easy, maybe more.
Okay. Moving on, GOP senators have now introduced a bill that was introduced in the House last month. Now, this bill will require the DNA testing of migrants to curb the slave trade and human trafficking of children. We're seeing a lot of children end up alone, or that have been kidnapped, or literally have rented children. So stealing children, you know, kidnapping them, parents literally renting out their small children. There was, I believe it was a horrific story of some 40, 50-year-old man with an 8-month-old baby. I can't believe that a mother would rent out her infant to some stranger to get across the border. Incredible. Do you think that the Democrats will actually sign that, get that bill passed through the House, since they're the majority? I mean, it was introduced in the House last month. It still hasn't passed, and now it's been introduced in the Senate. Your thought?
I think they lost a lot of steam when the Supreme Court ruled, was it 5-2 in favor of, or was it 7-2 in favor of supporting immigration law and not allowing people to claim asylum if they cross another country. And so that's going to have a big difference.
Okay.
In what's happening in the next few weeks and months, is that you're going to see a decline. And besides that, it sounds harsh, but it's not really harsh. If you don't want to risk dying and losing your children, don't try to cross the border illegally. Which one's more important?
Right.
Preserving the life of your children, or taking the risk of dying on an attempt to get across the border illegally?
Right. Right. Well, they could come in legally. It just takes some patience and time. But there are people around the world, and approximately 1 million, that come in legally every year. If other people can come into this country legally, all those people that have broken our laws and come here illegally could certainly do it the right way and obey the law. Other people do it every day. Philip, to close things out, we had what was to me a fabulous conversation. We never got to the end of it last week on Afghanistan, and just wanting to conclude that conversation just briefly. Let's take the last couple minutes. I was reading a report. This came out from the Middle East Media Research Institute. This particular article came out of Qatar. And it was a negative piece about the United States, saying that the United States has admitted defeat in Afghanistan and that the Taliban's Islamic Emirate is coming back. There is an Islamic Sharia law constitution that unfortunately the Bush administration helped out and allowed to get documented and put down in black and white. And the Taliban just want to put that into effect and reinstate their brutality across Afghanistan. It's my understanding they're 70% in control of Afghanistan now. The U.S. is demanding a full ceasefire by the Taliban. The United States wants to launch, from what I gather, negotiations between the Taliban and the Afghan government. And they want binding guarantees from the Taliban that Afghanistan will not become a launching pad for terrorist groups attacking the U.S., terrorist groups such as Al-Qaeda and ISIS. That seems very naive to me. Your thoughts, Philip?
If I heard you correctly, the bottom line is to look for a document called the Code of Conduct, which is published in English by a group called Al-Qaeda of the Indian subcontinent. It's the largest coalition of jihad groups that's ever existed in history. And their plain goal is to destabilize the governments of Afghanistan, Pakistan, India, Bangladesh, and Myanmar, and to establish Sharia law. Well, they're about to do that in Afghanistan. Okay. And the Taliban have already claimed victory. They're already working with Islamic State and Al-Qaeda in Taliban, along with the Iranians, and I might say also the Chinese, and help from the Russia. Mm-hmm. They're on a tour right now in China, Russia, to get support. Iran, the countries that are around. But it's really like looking at an old Western cartoon with a bunch of vultures in a dead tree. They're all looking down at Afghanistan, waiting to see who's going to devour it. But their goals are really quite clear. The intelligence in India says that it's not going to diminish the influence in what they call the AFPAC theater, that is going to turn into exactly what President Trump is hoping it won't, a basic battlefield for that part of the world.
Right.
You can journal, or I should say query, what counter-terrorism experts from India are saying, and they all agree. They're waiting for the wave to come. And the other thing to show that is this recent last couple of weeks since India changed the status of Kashmir, Jammu and Kashmir, to an affiliated territory with their country, the Pakistanis have gone completely berserk. Yeah. They're calling for jihad against India constantly, every day, including all the way up to Imran Khan, the Prime Minister of Pakistan, the very same guy that President Trump just met with last month, calling for jihad, that the Muslims of the world will rise up against India. Yes. And that's exactly the context of the situation in Afghanistan. They're all interrelated. This wind, if you will, this force of gravity is sweeping through that area, and their first resort is to jihad. They want to establish Sharia law through the whole region. Yes, it's complicated and kaleidoscopic, but there's a common denominator underneath all of it. Afghanistan, Pakistan, all the way across that region. It's the same force of gravity working in all the entire region.
Thank you, Philip, so much. I appreciate your expertise on this, and I absolutely concur. I just think that was, you stated that fabulously. Ladies and gentlemen, Philip Haney, an expert on Islamic terrorism, is going to be speaking this Thursday, not this Thursday, but the following Thursday night, September 26th. He's going to be speaking in Madeira, the city of Madeira. I want you to call and make reservations. He's going to be talking about the national security meltdown. And you can make your reservations by contacting Barbara at 559 area code 232-0566. Yes, I am attending this event. I hope to see everyone there. 559-232-0566. Philip Haney, ladies and gentlemen, on the national security meltdown. Philip Haney, thank you so much for taking the time to come on this program. We just love talking to you today and getting your expertise on these topics. Thank you for your time.
You're very welcome.
You have a wonderful evening, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, dear. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Ladies and gentlemen, we've got to go to a commercial break. I want to remind everyone about that wonderful restaurant, Frugati's Restaurant. It's the #1 Italian restaurant in all of Kern County, and it's been voted #1 in Southern California. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go to it and see me there soon. I want to tell you about a place I love to go, Frugati's Italian Restaurant. Very few locations here provide seating outside in front of a fabulous water fountain with an atmosphere that is reminiscent to me of eating outdoors in Venice. This is real Italian food by real Italians. And what makes it even more so is owner Ralph Frugoletti, who nearly a quarter century ago brought a wood fire oven from Milan, Italy to make, like his mother, fresh homemade bread and pizzas. Moreover, Frugati's Restaurant offers you not only the very best in Southern Italian cooking, even importing the finest ingredients for authentic Italian food, including a fitness menu. After all, Ralph has represented the United States and Italy, competing in the Master Championship Games. He knows all the right food for good fitness, so check out the menu. After today's broadcast, run over to Frugati's Italian Restaurant and Catering at 600 Coffee Road here in Bakersfield. And after a Friday, Saturday, or Sunday service, stop into Frugati's for a great lunch. I'll see you there, and tell Mr. Ralph Frugoletti that Denice sent you. Salute. Bon appetito. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're a major defense contractor, if you're working for Boeing or Lockheed Martin, United Technologies, Northrop Grumman, Raytheon, General Electric, whatever defense contractor you're working for, you need to contact Ananias Products at 661-822-6873. Anything that flies, military equipment, they've got the facilities to provide all your nuts and bolts, all your aircraft bolts for your project, including top secret projects. Scott Baker is the owner and operator. He is a former Marine Corps officer, and he's the man to do the job for you. Give him a call at 661-822-6873. They're up there in Tehachapi in the hub. They're working in the hub of the aerospace industry. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to the Denice Gary Show. Please, our call to action today is to pray. Pray for the President of the United States. Pray for our congressional leaders, those in the House and the Senate. Pray for the leaders of the state of California that have made some pretty bad decisions looking at the Democrats and their control of California. Pray. Pray for the leaders here locally, statewide, and nationwide, and particularly the President of the United States, who's carrying quite a burden in terms of the things that he's facing each and every day. Pray for the wisdom and for better understanding for all of our leaders, that they make great decisions on behalf of the American people. Again, thank you so much for listening to the Denice Gary Show. We'll be right back with you tomorrow on Tuesday with a special guest, a whistleblower, another former Marine Corps officer, talking about terrorist training camps in the United States. We'll see you tomorrow.